Okay, thank you very much. We're going to have this meeting is basically dedicated to talking about Earth Week and what the state is doing in that area, not just to commemorate the week, but just to use this as an event to bring more energy and focus and clarity to the efforts that we've had underway. Then I want to make a couple of general points about where we are just in the phase that we're going to be shifting to as we move through this legislative session, more towards an operational session, and I'll have those comments at the end. But at this point, let me turn it over to Deputy Secretary Robert Holman, who will preview a number of presentations that we have for Earth Week. Bob?
Thank you, Governor. The members of your Energy and Environment team appreciate very much the opportunity in honor of Earth Day to announce to you and the Cabinet and others present some very exciting new initiatives in the clean energy and environmental program area. They illustrate the administration's commitment to a sustainable energy future and also illustrate that under your leadership, Governor, as far as we're concerned, every day is Earth Day. When Earth Day was first celebrated over 40 years ago, I believe in 1969. I learned quickly, I think. 1969. It was viewed then, and it is now, as a very important way to bring an awareness to the importance of our natural resources and the necessity for preserving them. Governor, in your record as Attorney General in enforcing federal and state environmental requirements, in the comprehensive energy and environmental programs included in your platform as a candidate for governor, and in the initiatives that you've presented so far, these all embody that awareness. And equally importantly, I think, they embody the understanding that environmental protection and economic development and jobs are not at war with each other, as some would have it. They go hand in hand. They're both essential elements of a sustainable and quality of life that we all want. Recent examples of that approach, I'll just list a few. The Power New York Act of 2011, which you proposed and signed into law last year, broke through 10 years of tremendous gridlock in this state on the environmental side and established a permitting system to streamline permits available for clean energy projects and renewable energy projects. It also, for the first time in this state, directed DEC to establish limits on carbon emissions, another very important aspect of the state's clean energy program. Your Clean Green Communities initiative, which built upon the smart growth policies you endorsed as a candidate, requires sustainability to be integrated into regional and economic development plans, another important reflection of the merging of energy and economic objectives and the good that can do. The State Energy Highway Initiative that you announced a few months ago, which is designed to modernize our energy infrastructure with major public and private partnership sharing, is also a commitment to enhance access to clean energy, to make our energy system more efficient, and to develop a sustainable energy system. In the budget, you were able to achieve other, I think, victories for environmental and economic development together. You were able to maintain the level of funding for the Environmental Protection Fund, which is a bedrock of land acquisition and other natural conservation policies in the state. And you were able to secure an unprecedented commitment for capital investment in our world-class park system. The initiatives we're going to announce today demonstrate the continuing commitment to clean energy future and innovative and entrepreneurial environmental projects. The presentation will be made by three people to my right, who you know well: Gil Quinones, the President and CEO of NYPA, Joe Martens, the Commissioner of DEC, and Rose Harvey, the Commissioner of Parks and Recreation. Gil?
Thank you, Bob. The last time I presented before all of you, I talked about the Energy Highway. While the Energy Highway's focus is on generation and transmission, electric infrastructure of this state, I also mentioned in that presentation, and I would like to amplify today, that the governor's energy policy agenda really leads with the deployment of energy efficiency and clean energy technologies. So today I am pleased to present 3 of those clean energy technologies. The New York Sun Initiative, Clean Energy, Strategic Investment, and a bold master plan for energy efficiency. I am presenting today not only on behalf of NYPA, but our partners with NYSERDA, the Public Service Commission, and the Long Island Power Authority, as we have been coordinating and collaborating very closely in implementing this initiative. First, the New York Sun. This is an initiative that the governor announced during his State of the State address. The goal is to double the amount of customers cited that's behind the electric meter, solar electric system installations annually, and quadruple that amount by 2013. I am pleased to announce that just last week, the Public Service Commission doubled NYSERDA's budget for solar programs to $108 million per year over the next 4 years. That's about $260 million more over the next 4 years. If you add the investments by NYPA and LIPA, that gets you closer to $300 million in investment, an increase of over 200% over the next 4 years. And this collaboration will certainly create green jobs. It will increase the deployment of this important solar technology across the state and help contain energy costs for ratepayers and consumers. The second key initiative that I would like to present to you today is the investments that we are making in clean energy technologies. Our role is to help demonstrate and validate emerging clean energy technologies. When I say emerging, these are commercial technologies but are not yet widely deployed across the state. And by demonstrating and validating their performance, we are going to be able to help accelerate their deployment and therefore help advance our economic and energy policies and goals. And I am thrilled to announce that NYSERDA today is providing a $4.2 million grant for solar and wind turbine test centers, which will result in the creation of a Center for Evaluation of Clean Energy Technology in our state. And that means we will have the first in the East Coast solar testing laboratory, which will be located in Cortland, New York. Also, we will have a wind turbine blade testing lab that will be launched at Clarkson University. As you know, many of our wind farms are in upstate New York, in western New York, and in the North Country. In fact, many of those connected to the electric transmission system of NYPA. The third important and very bold energy efficiency initiative that we are launching is what's called a master plan for energy efficiency in public buildings. This was also announced by the governor in his State of the State, and today we are thrilled to announce that NYPA will be financing and facilitating the retrofit of state buildings, county and local buildings, public schools, public colleges and universities, public hospitals, to make them more energy efficient and to reduce their energy consumption by 20%. This initiative will create thousands of jobs in New York State. It is approximated that if for every 1 million investment in energy efficiency, you create between 15 to 50 direct and indirect jobs. And so it's a great economic development engine as well as decreasing our greenhouse gas emissions and pollutants in the state. So oftentimes the governor in these cabinet meetings have told us that it is the government's role to be transformational. And Governor, with your vision and leadership, we are not only leading by example, we are leading from the front in creating a clean and sustainable energy economy in the state of New York. Thank you. That concludes my presentation, and now I will pass it on to my partner and friend, Joe Martens, who will tell us about the exciting environmental activities in our state. Joe?
Thank you, Gil. Could I have the clicker?
Clicker.
Thank you. Good morning, Cabinet members and Governor. Thank you, Gil. In just 16 months, Governor, you have achieved major environmental progress and made significant investments in protecting New York's air, land, and water. Many of those accomplishments wouldn't have been possible without your leadership in maintaining the Environmental Protection Fund, as Bob announced earlier, at $134 million in the last 2 years. A healthy EPF has provided critical funding for projects from local recycling to nutrient management assistance for farmers, from open space protection to invasive species control. And this year you worked with the legislature to begin solving a decades-old problem, the state's aging environmental infrastructure. The Innovative New York Works program will provide $102 million to DEC to fix up high-priority dams, flood control structures, and coastal erosion projects. And obviously, after last summer's storms, this funding could not literally come at a more perfect time. Last summer, you secured another major victory for the state and the state's water resources when you initiated and signed into law a water withdrawal bill. New York obviously has vast water resources. However, there's lots of demands on those resources. So this new law will protect those water supplies, and it will benefit both the environment and the economy, like many of our programs do. New York is also a pioneer using green infrastructure as a solution to wastewater and stormwater pollution. Unlike traditional infrastructure made of concrete and steel, green infrastructure, things like green roofs, gardens, trees, can be used to capture rain where it falls, preventing sewer systems from overflowing and polluting our waterways. Earlier this year, we reached a landmark enforcement agreement with New York City to significantly reduce water pollution from combined sewer overflows during major rain events in the city. Under this order, the city will invest an estimated $2.4 billion in public and private funds over 18 years to install green infrastructure to manage stormwater before it enters the New York City sewers. And we'll start seeing some of the changes to the New York City landscape very shortly, because the order requires New York City to spend $187 million over the next 3 years. This is a monumental accomplishment, and it puts New York State in the forefront of, I would say, a national and even an international movement towards green infrastructure. And as Bob mentioned before, after a 10-year stalemate, you signed into law the Power New York program that required DEC to promulgate environmental justice and greenhouse gas emission regulations for new power plants. We had a 1-year deadline to do those regulations, and I'm happy to say that we did it in just over half that amount of time. These first-in-the-nation regulations will facilitate community participation in the siting process, require an analysis of the burdens on environmental justice communities, and impose standards on CO2 emissions. We're not only working to safeguard the state's water and air resources, but we're also working to protect and conserve the state's special landscapes. Over the past 16 months, we've protected nearly 10,000 acres across the state, and it's some of New York's finest landscapes that protect watersheds, they provide public recreation, they capture carbon, and they keep important fish and wildlife habitat intact. For these and other efforts, we're getting national recognition. In fact, I'm pleased to announce today that the U.S. EPA will honor three state initiatives with its 2012 Environmental Quality Awards tomorrow in New York City. Under Matt Driscoll's leadership, the Environmental Facilities Corporation instituted a green infrastructure grant program, once again emphasizing that green infrastructure, and is recognized for providing $80 million to more than 100 green projects throughout the state. Projects range from rain-absorbing roof gardens to unearthing the Sawmill River in downtown Yonkers. This program has leveraged an additional $80 million in local investments. And DEC's Hudson River Estuary Program will receive EPA's Environmental Quality Award for its work to conserve and revitalize the river and its ecosystem. It's all about enhancing this national treasure so that the river supports not only a wide array of aquatic life, but the communities along its banks as well. Thousands of volunteers, by the way, have been helping in that effort. The third award will go to Dr. Anahita Williamson, the director of the New York State Pollution Prevention Institute, also known as P2I. That state-funded P2I programs drive innovation and they make businesses greener and more competitive. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a second, but I wanted to acknowledge that Dr. Williamson is here with us today, and she is the award winner. She does a terrific job, and we have a little awards ceremony this afternoon, but I'll talk about that in a minute. The P2I's results are measurable. A lot of times, when you talk about environmental achievements, they're hard to quantify. Well, last year, P2I helped New York businesses eliminate the use of 851,000 pounds of hazardous waste, cut non-hazardous byproducts by 10,000 pounds, electric energy use by 945,000 kilowatt hours, and water use by 6.2 million gallons. And in the process, it saved companies $346,000. That was just last year in 2011. Today, we're going to build on that success at the Pollution Prevention Institute. I'm pleased to announce P2I's new Green Initiative, which will help companies bring green technology to market and help them green their supply chains. $1.6 million will be made available to P2I over the next 2 years to implement this program, which was made possible in cooperation with the state legislature. Not only does P2I work for New York businesses, but it works with New York students as well. Schools obviously are great drivers of knowledge and innovation. Yesterday, P2I held a R&D student competition where 10 student teams from P2I's partner universities exhibited their solutions to reduce their they're innovative, and they range from exploring ways to turn campus waste into energy, to reduce power demand from campus refrigeration, to examining the benefits of microturbines to generate power. A student team from Clarkson University won the competition with its motion sensor lighting project. The project installed motion sensor lights in hallways at Clarkson, and then they measured the electricity savings in the process. The result, 32% reduction in electric use that would pay for itself over 3 to 5 years. And that could mean up to $600,000 in savings at places like Clarkson alone. And these are a couple of students, and I'd like to tell you that all of the students I met are amazing people. They're very bright. We should be proud that they're at New York institutions doing this great work. Two of them of the actual award winners are here with us today. In the front row, they're Jeannie Picars and David Illig. I'd like them to stand up. Thank you both. David is holding the award they got. They were also won some nice prizes that were, the program was supported by several New York State businesses. And they did a terrific job. I'm going to stop there and turn it over to my colleague, Commissioner Rose Harvey. Many of you know Rose will be moving in with us next week, so we will have a much closer collaboration than we've had in the past. All yours, Rose.
As you all know, we have a world-class park system. We have 178 state parks, 35 historic sites. It's the most in the country of any park system. It's the third largest in land area. And with 58.2 million visitors annually, we're the second only to California in visitation across the country. And we have a history like none other. And Governor, when you came into office, when I came into office, you said there's one thing that you're going to do, and you're going to keep, our park system had been struggling, and you said you're going to keep them open, you're going to make them accessible, safe, and welcoming to all New Yorkers, and you're going to do it. And I want to tell you that they have been, they are, and they will be open. And they're safe, and they're welcoming, and they're accessible to all. But even better than that, with this fiscal year ending just recently, we have 1 million more visitors. And that is very, very important in these financially... These are financially challenging times, and these are close to home. They're affordable. They're an opportunity to escape, to explore and experience New York's remarkable natural, cultural, historical resources. And from an Earth Week perspective, this is very important as a fundamental goal of parks, and that's to connect people to the land, to their environment, and to understand it as we believe it's essential to our human health, happiness, and well-being. We also are the oldest park system, and we're also the most developed park system as we service many cities. We're metropolitan in nature. And for 30 years, we have not sustained a regular input of investment for our capital facilities. And as the oldest systems, they've been deteriorating, and 83% of our parks are in some state of disrepair. And again, we thank you for the New York Works program. It will be the single largest capital investment in the history of state parks. It's $89 million. It'll leverage $54 million of existing funds. It will then result in $143 million to improve 48 state parks. It will touch every corner of New York State. It will touch all our flagships. It will improve facilities for better programming. It will go to health and welfare, antiquated water systems, sewer systems, electrical systems. It will restore boathouses and bathhouses where people could no longer use the beaches. It will build playgrounds and trails, and most importantly, it will have an overlay of energy efficiency to reduce our operating costs, and it will also reinstate some aesthetics. We're going to remove the duct tape and put some aesthetics to return it to its former glory. And most importantly, it's about getting it on the ground now to service the public, and we're moving fast. We have 22 projects. They're out to bid at an estimated cost of $35 million. We have another 10 projects that valued at $12 million that are already under contract. So as an example of what we're going to do, Niagara Falls, it's clearly a flagship. It's our country's oldest park. It is our state system's most heavily visited park, 8 million annually. It's more than Yosemite and Yellowstone combined, and it's an anchor to Western New York's tourism economy. Yet, along with the rest of our park system, it's experienced its fair share of wear and tear, and it's become a little shabby. So last summer, even before we knew there was a glimmer of hope of dollars, capital dollars, we essentially worked on a revitalization plan to look at the infrastructure, to look at the homesteading design and that made it so unique and that which we could restore, and look at better better services for all of our visitors. And we have it. We know what we want to do. We're going to restore public areas, the Cave of the Winds. We're going to redesign the American Falls Bridge. We're ready to go, and we're out, and many of those contracts are either let or out to bid. And I just want to mention as well, with my colleagues on energy efficiency, I was just there on Tuesday to dedicate some solar panels on the Discovery with NYSERDA as a partner. It will essentially power the lighting for the Discovery Center, and there's much more to do through New York Works with all of our partners. As well, historic preservation has been very busy at work, certainly with the 35 historic sites, but a core mission of our Bureau of Historic Preservation is to find and encourage homeowners, commercial building owners to use federal and state tax credits to restore and rehabilitate their buildings. And in 2001, we essentially brought to the forefront, supported 54 applications for federal tax credits. It encompasses a total of $1.1 billion of private rehab projects. It spurs redevelopment in the urban areas downtown, and Lafayette Hotel is an example. It's beautiful now, and it's in the downtown, and it created 300 construction jobs. These tax credits are an economic engine, but in honor of Earth Week, it's also important to understand that historic preservation embodies all of the basic tenets of conservation and reuse and recycling. And as well, the greenest building is the one that's already built. So on that, I want to thank you, and I also want to thank all of my colleagues, as we've had tons of partnerships for all of this support for parks and onward and upward.
Great. Very well done. Well done. You know, we were chatting earlier this morning when we were getting ready for today. One of the things the three of you have done extraordinarily well, and with Bob's leadership, we all talk about trying to get out of the silo mentality of agencies and develop a cross-cutting synergy. But you have really mastered it, you know, and the NYPA DEC, parks, energy, synergy, the way you collaborate, really, you've done an extraordinary job, I believe, in your own capacities and in your own agencies or authorities. But the combination is greater than the sum of the parts, and you should really be applauded for that, because it's very hard to do. It's right in concept, and everybody will say in concept, but it's very hard to do as a matter of practice, and you've done it very well. But it really is impressive, and it's that you've gotten all of that done in 16 months is really something to be proud of. So you've honored Earth Week. Any questions? I have one question for you, Rose. 1 million more visitors. That's striking. You have any sense, what's your instinct on why? Is it a function of the economy? Is it?
I think our parks...
Of course, your leadership, I'm sure, is a magnet. But besides that...
I think affordability, you know, close to home, affordable, I think high quality outdoor recreation, either on a day-to-day basis or for vacations. I think that's the driver on it.
Good for you. Questions? Just Bob?
I think
Lieutenant Governor?
1 million visitors was the question I was going to ask. That's terrific. I was going to say, great presentation. I agree with the governor with the teamwork. On a green jobs aspect, with all the regional councils, the economic development, what are some things we could do to help support and get that word out in each of the regions in terms of as that develops? Because that's one of the biggest things that we hear is trying to spark the economy. And can we, I just want to say, the governor last week hosted an event to prepare for the Tappan Zee Bridge, to give people a way to prepare to apply and be eligible for jobs. What can we do with the regional councils across the state to help you with the same?
Lieutenant Governor, I think the best way is to have a coordination and communication with all of the current energy efficiency and clean energy technology programs that we have, not just in government, but also those that are implemented by our investor-owned utilities to the various regional council groups. We start with government. We start by leading by example so that we can show that this actually works. They make good business sense. They are practical. And so I think just a little bit more coordination and communication. It's happening now, but I think we just need to sustain that going forward.
Lieutenant Governor, I would just add, I think the coordination at the regional development councils has been extraordinary. I mean, the consolidated funding application was a brilliant idea. It forced everybody to kind of put it all in one pot so that people knew, where the funds would be directed and could get at them easily. DEC, and I know the other agencies as well, have all been represented at the council meetings. Subcommittee meetings, we have them well-staffed, and we're communicating all the time. And I think that has been the key to success of that program. Your leadership to pull this all together was critical in that process.
Questions, comments? Jerry?
Project that Joe is funding in New York City with the sewers is really fascinating. I'd love to get more information about that offline, because pre-collecting or filtering things before it gets into the sewers is something, having been down there most of my life, you see what people dump into the sewers. That's the kind of project that could be used nationwide and worldwide. I mean, that's really a fascinating project.
The fascinating thing I have discovered about this is that it took us so long to figure out that we just need to mimic natural systems. I mean, filtering water through soil, trees, things like rooftop gardens. We are mimicking what was there before we built all the things we did in New York City and in upstate communities. So we are taking a step back, and we're finding we don't need the sophisticated, huge storage facilities, tunnels, pipes. If we can find ways to capture it, on the ground. It's worked. It's going to work, I think, great in New York City. Onondaga County has been another place that's been a leader in green infrastructure, and I think one community after another. We have huge sewer problems across the nation and in New York State. I think this is going to be a key to solving them.
Yeah.
People use sewers to dump everything. So anything you can do to clean that up is obviously a home run.
Great. Any other questions, comments? No? Okay, I have a last point. We'll talk about it more as we go forward. First, just to get back to the point Brian raised earlier, before we began the meeting. On the 400-mile ride, I applaud you for your initiative. I don't want you to have gotten the wrong idea. And if you can get your colleagues to participate, I will take my proportionate share of the ride. I don't know. So I would love to participate. And you get them on board, I'm on board. They sign up first. Last point for you to think about, and we'll talk about this more over the next couple of meetings. We're going to be shifting gears once again, not just on Brian's bicycle. And there are distinct phases to a certain extent to what we do during the year. Beginning of the year, January, February, you're basically doing policy formulation and articulation. It's the state of the state. That's the budget, laying out what you want to do. That we then go into the budget phase by April 1, theoretically. So far, the past 2 years in actuality also. Then the remainder of the legislative session through June, and then the summer months. Next year, it starts all over again. This year is a little bit different. We did so much in the budget. We did so much legislative work in and around the budget that we accomplished the overwhelming majority of what we had laid out as an agenda in the State of the State in the budget. If you go back and look at the State of the State in the budget, we did 90% of all the initiatives we said we were going to do. So this legislative session was very much front-loaded. There are a few issues left for the remainder of the legislative session. Whether or not we can pass campaign financing, whether or not we can raise the minimum wage are probably the two most controversial issues that are going to be discussed. And they are polarizing issues right now. If you listen to the dialogue in the legislature, you'll hear two very different points of view between the Assembly and the Senate. So there's a large gap that needs to be closed there. Plus, it's an election year, so there's not a tremendous appetite for them to take on campaign financing this year. And there's, for an issue to move in this town, as we've learned, you either need a very strong internal pressure where the legislature wants to get it done because it's in their interest, or a tremendous external pressure. So those are the dynamics around those two issues. You have an issue on teacher evaluation that you'll hear about while you're out there. They'll ask your opinion. Should teacher evaluations be disclosed? That is an issue that is ripe and that I would like to see resolved in this legislative session. It's an issue that we worked on from day one. We're the reason, to a large extent, that teacher evaluations are actually moving because they had been sitting and they couldn't come to an agreement. We got involved. There's now an agreement. There's a statewide teacher evaluation system. The resulting question was, will you release the evaluation? And you have two extremes. Some people say the teacher's right to privacy is paramount, and you should not disclose the evaluation. Others say it should be totally disclosed. The truth is probably somewhere in the middle, but we'll be working through that. We'll also have a reform program that Courtney is working on with Introne, basically in the area of DD, which is going to be important. We have other program bills that we're going to be doing, but it will be a relatively quiet end of session from a legislative point of view. And we'll be shifting from legislative to operational. Meaning what? Meaning part of what we do is pass legislation, work to pass legislation. More of what we do is we implement the legislation and we operate the government, right? We are operators, we are administrators, we're the executive. And the fun part of the job, frankly, is the implementation, the actualization of the legislation. Now, that's what we're moving to. And you will see that the operational is very strategic and very focused and reinforcing. It's not just that a lot of agencies are going to be rolling out a lot of initiatives. Most of them are going to be reinforcing a common theme and a common strategic end for the administration. One of the strengths we've had thus far is we focus and we all pull in the same direction. And we're going to be bringing it together the next few months around the theme of New York Open for Business. New York Open for Business is not just an ESDC slogan. It is an administration-wide directive, state of mind, culture. Every agency is making the same point. And when we talk about New York Open for Business, we have it on that one line on the slide, entrepreneurial government that creates jobs and builds a progressive community of opportunity. If you had to work on one line that got it all in there, to me that would be the line. It's entrepreneurial government, which is a term that we coined. It's a different belief in government, different use of government, using government to incentivize the private sector, a government that thinks entrepreneurially, creating jobs, building a progressive community. We're progressive, and we're proud of it. We fight discrimination, equal rights, etc. Progressive community, the word community in and of itself, commonality, togetherness, of opportunity. That's what New York Open for Business is. That's what we're driving towards. That's what we're creating, and then everything builds to that. They'll bring you back for individual discussions on the top initiatives. But you'll see they all take you back to the same place. New York SUNY 2020, second round of competition to invest in SUNYs to improve the academic excellence, but also to make them the economic catalyst in their region. We announced the second round with Chancellor Zimfer, and that's going to be rolled out over the next few weeks. A new education commission, long-term economic development, Ken Adams will tell you, is the education system. We have a lot of work to do in education in this state. We're dealing with an old paradigm that is flawed. We had generations and years and decades where this state did not do what this state should have been doing. We're very good at making excuses. We have to actually come up with reforms and make progress. Education Commission, Tax Reform Commission, same thing. How do you take that tax code, which we reformed already, but believe me, the more you know about the tax code, the more you know there's more reform to do. And you can simplify the tax code, incentivize businesses, and make as much money. I am convinced of it. But you have to put it all on the table, and you have to overhaul it all at once. And that's what the Tax Commission is going to do. The New York Works Task Force, which we've talked about, New York Open for Business ad campaign is going to be coming out the next couple of weeks. Theoretically, BBD&O has worked on an ad campaign. It was in last year's budget, this year's budget, where basically the analog to the I Love New York ads, but more focused about this is the state to do business in. We'll be rolling that out. Second round of regional councils, and the Pathway Through History, which is started as a relatively small idea with DOT, but I'm telling you, has generated all sorts of excitement. Signage on the thruway pointing out historic sites from a tourism point of view, educational point of view. But it's excited all the different regions, and it brought forth a regional pride where people say, well, you know what we have here is this, and this Civil War site, and this revolutionary site, and this birthplace. So we'll have a conference on that to actually designate what the signage is, in what areas, and then there'll be another added component for the state. So that will basically, we'll be making that shift now. You'll start to feel it more and more. You'll be involved in the rollout of all these initiatives. They'll be topical, so they'll be talking to you about them. You'll get individual briefings. My main point was they all come back to New York Open for Business, and the same basic end game for everyone. And they're different specific instrumentalities to get back to the same place. But that will basically be May, June, July, probably even August. That'll take us through the summer. Only thing that's not in here is striped bass fishing, which we have to get on here because Joe Martens can give you the best tips of where the fish are biting. I mean, you can get it literally from the source of information, if he's willing to tell you. But that'll be the next few months. And then come the end of the summer, we'll be going into a different phase, and we'll talk about it at that time. And you'll be, over the next few weeks, there's a lot to each one of these initiatives, but, and we'll be going through it in detail, but I just wanted to give you the broad outline. Other than that, any other points in general? Okay, any questions from the press?
Governor,
Mark?
with the going back to Earth Day for a moment, a lot of the savings, energy savings, starts at the home. And I remember a few years ago, Silda Spitzer had a news conference about solar panels at the Executive Mansion. How much savings have you realized over the past 16 months or so at the Executive Mansion, and what have you done, and how do you see future savings happening at the Executive Mansion?
Let's deconstruct this question also. What savings have I realized in what capacity? From my personal behavior?
Well, whether,
I've
whether the
eaten
solar...
less.
Are the solar panels...
I don't know. Yeah, it's a good question. I'm just kidding you,
I
Mark.
know.
I'm just
Are the solar panels in place? Are they helping?
We can get you that information. I'm sure they've helped, but we can get you the exact numbers.
But
Do you know, Rowan, off the top
Our
of?
numbers are down all total, but I don't know exactly.
That's because I don't turn on the lights, though, either, I want you to know. I keep the entire mansion dark all the time, so your electric bill should be way low. And I eat very little. I don't wash many clothes.
do you look around the mansion and say, we could save here, we could save there? We could
Yes,
do
I
this"?
close the lights, I take food away from people while they're eating. You had enough. Yes.
Governor,
I am cost conscious.
there were some young people who came here, I think, last week. They were undocumented immigrants who were CUNY students. I'm wondering, do you think that undocumented immigrants should be able to apply for TAP?
What is the current state of the law? Can undocumented immigrants apply for TAP? Who knows? In New York City. They get resident tuition, in-state tuition, but not TAP. So the current law is they don't. You're asking, should the law be changed?
Yes, they're asking for the ability to apply for those grants. They note that they can't afford college even at the in-state tuition without the assistance program.
You know, it's an interesting question, an interesting issue, Jimmy. It's going to be, you have to look at the immigration law federally, and then you have to look at the cost to the state. Obviously, be a significant cost. You know, a lot of these programs on education aid, there's discussion now on the federal side about the rate that we charge on student loans. We did a lot of work on student loans in the Attorney General's office. You want to make education as accessible and affordable as you can, and then you run into a dollar and cents question, you know, because you have to balance the budget. That's why I'm turning off the lights in the mansion. You know, it's all about the money. So you'd have to look at both.
In Utica today, there's an announcement that the Orion bus plant is going to shut down. It's going to cost, I think, more than 100 jobs. I was wondering if you had been aware of that, and is the state going to be able to do anything to try to keep the plant?
I was not aware of that, Kyle. I don't know if there's anything that we can do. We'll look into it, but I'd not heard about it.
Governor, one of the initiatives in your State of the State address was a call for the end of fingerprinting of food stamp recipients, and you said that you were looking at regulations to do that. What is the status of that? Is that still something you intend to
Yes.
do?
Yes, it is.
How come it hasn't been done yet, and any kind of time for bringing it forward?
Because I haven't done everything yet, but it is something that we laid out in this State of the State, and my position hasn't changed.
Governor, there's a report today that the state's loan application for the federal TIFIA grant for the Tappan Zee Bridge project wasn't among the first 5 projects chosen. Could you fill us in on what the latest on that is and how that affects the project?
Does anyone know? Do you know, Howard?
Actually, it was very good news for us today. They advised us that the Tappan Zee Bridge will be one of the 6 large-scale projects that will be considered in the second round. In this first round, they only did $100 million total for the whole country. Remember, our application for the Tappan Zee alone is in excess of $2 billion. So those large-scale high-profile projects will be a further round based on federally available funding. They can't fund these large programs right now. So it's good news for us to stay in the game, to be considered for the second round. The first round is, again, just the preliminary much smaller programs.
Is there any sort of timeline on the second round of funding when we may hear something on that?
Somewhat dependent on reauthorization of the federal transportation bill. That's what they're waiting on.
Governor, putting aside for a moment the
question of whether your communication staff has created dossiers of reporters. Can you explain what the purpose, the specific purpose of the meeting was with Liz Benjamin's bosses when there was your staffers were critical of the coverage?
No, you should talk to Rich Bamberger. I don't know what the conversation was.
You didn't authorize that meeting? You
No.
didn't know about this meeting?
No.
Have you ever contacted the bosses of reporters when you were critical of coverage?
Only yours.
Aside from mine?
Just yours.
Is that a concern at all that your staff?
That it
is
was
talking-
only you? No, if you're not concerned, I'm not concerned.
Is it a concern that Rich Bamberger then was talking to Liz Benjamin's bosses when he was critical of her coverage? Is that something that you would?
No, look, I think that's, I've never, to the extent I've dealt with the media, being able to talk to a reporter about a story, being able to talk to an editor about a story is entirely appropriate. You know, that's how it works. Reporter doesn't get to write whatever they want to write, doesn't get to write incorrect information, misleading information, without at least being able to talk to an editor. You know, the editor can then say, you know, I disregard everything you say, but the conversation is part of the coverage, part of the relationship, back and forth. So I think it's totally appropriate.
Governor, you
Both
mentioned...
ways, by the way. I have reporters who will complain and raise issues about the communication staff. You could have a reporter come to a press conference and raise a question about whether or not a director of communications, a press staff, should have been talking to an editor, right? So it sort of goes both ways. Some might say. Go ahead, Jimmy.
You mentioned the tax code and looking at the tax code. Hedge fund income is now treated as investment earnings and therefore taxed at a lower rate than if it were just treated as standard corporate profits, or on an individual level, it's at a lower rate than if it were treated as wages, like wage income. I'm wondering, do you think that's appropriate? Should it be treated as wage
I think that's
income?
one of the things to look at. I now understand the question. It's a question that's looked at on the federal side. How do you tax and consider hedge fund earnings? And it would be one of the issues that would be looked at here.
Do you have any thoughts on it going into this
I would let the
process?
commission look at it.
The tax department apparently has ended tax breaks and fee breaks that are given to in-state brewing companies in New York. Apparently it's a big amount of money for the brewing companies. Is there anything that you're looking at to try to restore this tax break that they've been getting, I guess, for decades?
Okay, I don't believe the tax department stopped. I believe there was a court ruling on that matter, right? Yeah. And we're reviewing that court decision, it's a recent court decision. We're reviewing that court decision because that's a very important industry for the state, and we want to make sure we're doing everything we can to nurture it. So we're going to be looking at the court decision very carefully.
Governor, I know you just said that you expect this legislative session for the remainder of the year to be relatively quiet, but if one of the court challenges to the redistricting plan gets tossed out, either the 63rd seat or the Department of Justice has some issues with some of the downstate Senate districts, do you see that complicating the legislative session?
Oh, that would complicate it. That would change. If that happens, take back everything I said before. I said when I signed the plan, I said, look, it is still subject to judicial review, right? There were all sorts of debates and questions about the legality of certain aspects of the plan. Is the 63rd seat legal? Is it not legal? And I said, look, the signing of the bill does not preclude the legal analysis of the plan. And that is exactly where we are. There were all sorts of discussions on whether or not the 63rd seat was legal. Now we're going to find out. And if it's not, the legislature is going to have to come back and revise the plan.
What's your instinct on the 63rd seat? Do you think it will be upheld by the Court of Appeals?
You know, let's see what the judge says. It's beyond instinct now, Nick. You know, it's before the judge. The argument is made, and let's see what they say.
You're a party
it's
to
imminent. The decision is imminent. I believe they want to make it shortly.
You're a party to this case, but I think your lawyers have not really kind of defended it legally. Why is that?
Let the court decide, Jimmy. I don't want to politicize the situation, so a court will make a determination, and then that will be the binding determination.
Governor, following the immigration question, the courts are considering the Arizona law now that's trying to allow states to enforce borders and also to question people they think might be illegal immigrants. Could you ever envision the state, New York State getting involved in something like that?
No. I can't envision the state adopting the posture that we should be enforcing the immigration laws. That's the purview of the federal government. We have plenty of laws that we need to enforce here ourselves with too few resources, so I don't see us becoming aggressive in the federal and the immigration law enforcement area.
Could you or somebody else talk a little bit more about the financing plan for the $800 million in investment in energy efficiency projects for government buildings? Are these bonds or?
This is going to be done through the New York Power Authority, so we will issue a tax-exempt debt to finance the energy efficiency upgrades in public buildings.
So is it going to be a full $800 million in?
Up to $800 million.
Up to $800 million?
Yes.
Is that going to be all at once or?
It will be done in tranches as needed.
Governor, both the Senate and the Assembly have proposals that would sweep the state's share of unclaimed bottle deposits into the Environmental Protection Fund. Where do you stand on that?
For this year, what did we do with that, Bob?
For next year, you know, we left it alone for this year. We funded EPF at the same level that we did in the past 2 years. I think it remains an open issue.
Jim has some information.
Jim?
Find a solution to the issue.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what.
You want to say it a little louder, Jim?
We're working on trying to come to an agreement of some sort to get some of the unclaimed funds into the EPF.
And you're discussing it with the Senate and the Assembly?
Correct. It's an ongoing discussion.
Is that something that we dealt with this year? Are you looking at future years?
What's the likelihood that it would pass legislative this year?
It's 50-50 either for the legislative session this year or for budget next year.
Governor, there was an announcement earlier this week about the life insurers and not using the master death list from the Social Security, and apparently there was an agreement. I was wondering if there was going to be a bill passed that says they have to use that list, or if it was just an agreement that says that from now on they will do it.
I believe the DFS did it by regulation and that they don't require a bill, but we have Superintendent Lawsky here. Is that right, Ben?
That's right. We have a reg that'll probably come out mid-May.
Governor, are you satisfied with the recent eBay sale of the state vehicles, or are you looking at further reduction in the state?
We sold all the vehicles. I was going to bid on one myself, but it would have raised so many questions that I was going to do it in the name of a reporter, actually. But even that would have raised a lot of questions. I think the sale went very, very well. Everything was sold. You made much money. Commissioner?
We had one vehicle that we had to take back because we didn't say that there was a mechanical. We didn't know of a mechanical.
Oh, then you're going to get a bad eBay rating, maybe. Oh, that's a problem. Out of how many vehicles did you take back one?
Close to 500.
When you buy a used car from Rowan Destino. I guess 1 out of 500 isn't bad.
But will there be further reductions? Are you looking at more reduction in the state vehicle fleet?
Do we have anything left to sell is the question.
Today, we have a live auction in Syracuse at the DOT facility, so we are selling more cars today.
But more cars today?
Just not more cars. We have 110 vehicles at the Syracuse auction. It's probably over. It's probably still going on now. And we have lots of other equipment and different things that are out there in Syracuse on South Bay Road.
But Governor, those are the standard auctions and sales.
That's a live auction, yes.
Right.
And we will continue to have live auctions.
Are you looking at a conscientious further reduction of the fleet?
Yes.
You want to further reduce the fleet from where we have it now?
Well, it's really about, you've got to just
We're going to be on bicycles. We're all going to be on this Brian Stratton bicycle tour soon.
Segways are a possibility as well. No, we're looking at overhauling the entire fleet management. Hasn't been done. You know, each agency manages their own cars. Commissioner DeStito is working on a process that would centralize fleet management and not duplicate vehicles being stored in multiple locations for use of multiple agencies when they're all in one area. So that's our next project.
This was about a 10% reduction of the fleet, so it was significant. And everybody was very cooperative. Agencies still have to function, and we have to do our job, and the management will be improved. But it was a significant reduction in the size of the fleet.
Governor, you're Open for Business ad campaign. Who's the target on that?
Business, small business, businesses that come to the state, businesses to grow in the state. Yes, making the point that we've been trying to make for a year and a half here, Tom, which is take a second look in New York. If you think New York is anti-business, think again, because it's not. This is the place to live, work, and do business. And we're going to say that every way we can. Ken Adams, anything you want to add on that, on the focus of the ad campaign?
There's an overall, you nailed it, and there's an overall message about building investor confidence in New York State. And those investors can be, as you say, Governor, small businesses, some of the 500,000 businesses in the state already, and then businesses well beyond our borders across the state and around the world. It's about building their confidence and having them, as you said, keep New York second look.
So what portion of the ads would be in-state versus out-of-state people?
You know the percentage?
That hasn't all been, the complete program, Tom, hasn't all been worked out in terms of those balances, but the initial advertising will really be a New York State message for New York State.
Are you going to be appearing in the ads, Governor?
Me?
Yeah.
Would you like me to be in the ads?
No, I mean, typically you see in other states, economic
You
development.
think the
ads,
governor should be in the ad?
I'm just asking if you're going to be in the ads.
Only in the ones that air out of state. No, I'm not. No, I'm not.
Governor, has there been any movement on the convention center at Aqueduct?
Nothing new from the last conversation. No.
Governor, in light of the DNA databank expansion, some of the members of the Commission on Forensic Science, which oversees the labs around the state, have come forward and criticized the Commission, saying it's not doing its job with oversight, and they've echoed some of the concerns in the Inspector General's report that came out last fall after the Nassau County Crime Lab scandal. Do you feel like the oversight in the state is robust enough as we rely more on forensic evidence?
You know, you can obviously always improve, but besides that general platitude, I haven't heard anything that would give me any pause that the oversight wasn't adequate, besides the Nassau situation, of course.
They said the Commission was basically outsourcing its job to an accrediting agency in North Carolina. They said the Commission wasn't really doing its oversight job.
Yeah, nothing has come to my attention that has given us pause.
Follow up on the answer to that question, that was one of the major items in your State of the State. And is there any kind of a timeline on that, and are you concerned that there is nothing to do on that?
No, you know, Eric, this is, some projects have a longer lead time than others. I said that I wanted to build a new Tappan Zee Bridge. The bridge isn't built yet either. But I don't think there's timelines on the projects, and obviously the convention center is a very large undertaking and a very complicated project. So we're working through it. I wouldn't have a definitive timeline, but we're making progress.
Has that held up at all, though, because of the requests for maybe credits for the BLTs or the slot machines, I should say?
No.
I think we joked about this once, but
we joke about a lot of things, Jimmy.
I know, and but there's a bill to legalize mixed martial arts that has now cleared the state Senate. Assembly Speaker Sheldon Silver has said he's of mixed emotions on it. Do you support this proposal? Would you sign the bill if it came to your desk?
I haven't seen it. I haven't seen the proposal, and we haven't had a discussion on it.
Do you have any thoughts on MMA?
I think it's going to be one of the topics that comes up this session, and I'm going to be having conversations with the Assembly and the Senate about it.
Have you ever seen an MMA match?
I have seen it on television. I've watched it, yes.
You enjoy
enjoy watching it?
I think some of the discussions in this room are more brutal than what I've seen on MMA. All right, guys, thank you very much.